The majority of life in the universe see water as a deadly poison, so when Earth gets visited, aliens freak out when they see us drinking it. The one thing you must understand about the silicates is how the universe must have looked from their perspective. As far as they knew, silicon-based life was the only life in the universe. For billions upon billions of years, they roamed the stars, meeting others like themselves, forming vast interstellar communities until all beings called themselves silicates. For countless generations, they lived in harmony and peace, and yet danger was all around, in the form of water. Before they could even conceive of water-based life, they knew of it all too well. Water is all too common in the universe, it turns out, usually in the relatively benign form of ice, but not always. Most planets were highly infected with water, many more than could support silicate life. Comets would often drop on a silicate world, causing destruction not only from the impact, but the lingering water poison left, destroying anything in its path. Entire worlds would sometimes need to be abandoned for millennia until the ecological disaster could be contained. The silicates thrived, of course, despite the dangers, but it was something they could never truly overcome either. For generation after generation, the threat of water was omnipresent. So when the silicates finally discovered Earth, to not only find yet another world completely lost to water, but to discover life thriving there, and not just life, intelligent life that was literally held together with an element so feared that it caused so much destruction and chaos. It must have been like seeing hell itself, with 8 billion devils just waiting for someone to torture, horror beyond imagination, human beings bathing in water, playing in it for pleasure, weaponizing it against each other for sport, rejoicing as it fell from the sky. Ultimately, it must have been too much for the silicates to take. They saw that we were spacefaring, primitive as our efforts were. They noted the mechanisms we left on our moon and the fourth planet, and found traces of water on both these bodies as well. Even some of the moons of the gas giants contained water. But most concerning of all were the comets, an entire field of them, roughly a quarter light year from the local star, surrounding the entire system. Trillions upon trillions of comets, containing an almost incalculable amount of water. What could this mean? The silicates perhaps wondered. Comets were common in the universe, of course, but such a gathering of them was unheard of. What force could have possibly brought so much water together? Was this the work of some long-dead ancestor of these humans? A military stockpile, perhaps, put into orbit, waiting for the time when they were needed? Even if it was simply chance, what would it mean for silicate life if and when the humans did begin to travel among the stars? Would they be peaceful? Could they be trusted? If war ever did occur, would they utilize these fearsome weapons? The decision was made, though it was not an easy one. Never in the history of any silicate race was life treated in this way. Some insisted that the life on Earth was not really life, merely an accident of evolution that must be fixed. Others simply acknowledged the fact that such an incomprehensible threat must be dealt with, regardless of the cost. The landings began as soon as enough silicate ships had gathered, though many more would follow. Humanity had many weapons that they brought to bear at each initial landing site, but ultimately their weaponry could not effectively prevent the ships from touching down on the planet, so from the start they were doomed. At some landings, silicate volunteers began melting as soon as they emerged from their ships, so thick was water in the very atmosphere itself. Where the air was drier, it was nonetheless trivial for silicates to find water and sacrifice themselves. Day after day, month after month, year after year, more silicates arrived, landed, and died. It didn't take long for the humans to figure out what was killing the silicates, and they foolishly began to build water weapons to defend themselves. What they realized too late was the effect the dead silicates were having on their atmosphere. Tons of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, arsenic, phosphorus, iron, magnesium, and a host of other elements that were native to the various silicate races, released from the bodies of the dead, began to collect in the Earth's atmosphere. Silicate High Command, gruesomely, experimented with what elements in the atmosphere, what silicate races to send to their deaths, would be most effective at killing the humans. The humans themselves eventually helped as well, deploying nuclear fission weapons that irradiated the planet's surface as well. In the end, it took nearly 100 years and cost the lives of close to 500 billion silicates, but humanity was defeated. Silicate military advisors suspect that some humans may have survived by hiding in underground bunkers, but the atmosphere of the Earth will be poison to them for at least 100,000 years. Automated monitor droids were placed around the planet to be certain, but finally, mercifully, the threat from the humans and their water was eliminated.